Welcome to day 12 of the Living Well series. Today's topic is finding meaning. And I want to start with a story. Once a hare challenged a tortoise to a race. So the hare and the tortoise lined up at the start, and they went and ran the race. And the hare was so fast that it decided it's going to take a stop, sit under the shade of a tree to get a little bit of rest because it's so far ahead. He thought the tortoise will take a while to catch up, and fell into such deep sleep that the tortoise passed it, crossed it, finished the line, and won the race. And the tortoise woke up and felt that it had lost an opportunity. It had overslept. Now, here's a story that you all heard of from early childhood, perhaps. Now, I just want you to know that's only one chapter to many more chapters of that story. So in the second chapter, so the hare reflects on its loss, goes back and goes into the library, gets a library card, gets into research mode, takes management books and goes through them beginning to end, and looks at winning strategies, and then realizes that it needs to ask for a re-race. So it goes back to the tortoise and says, can we do this over again? And tortoise agrees, and then they go and race. And this time the hare has learned its lesson. That is, winning strategy is that you go from beginning to end without stopping. So it does that and it wins the race. Now the tortoise is disappointed. So chapter 3. So the tortoise gets into research mode, gets a library card and goes into the library and starts researching all management strategies, winning strategies, business strategies, reads the art of war, etc. And then realizes that the race track has been rigged against it the whole time. So it asks for a rerun, and this time it says, I am going to choose the track that we're going to race on. And so they start off at the line and they start racing, and the hare finds itself at the bank of a river. There's a river in the course. And sure enough, the tortoise swims across the river, and this time the tortoise wins. Now, chapter 4. Over this period of time, in this many reruns and research and so on and so forth, over time, the hare and the tortoise become friends. So now they ask for a re-race, and this time when the race is run, the tortoise rides on the back of the hare on the land, and the hare rides on the back of the tortoise in the water, and together they cross the finish line. So the moral of the story is, together we can win any race. So you might have heard this famous African quote that goes by, if you want to travel fast, go alone. If you want to travel far, we need to go together. And this time in history, we need to travel fast and far together. Having said that, we see a lot of rhetoric, lots of postings online, messages that says that we are in this together, we can get through this together. But folks, as I observe the scenario, we are still at war with each other. Ideologies, opinions, belief systems, right wing, left wing, blue party, red party, your faith, my faith. I don't think we are in it together yet. We need to get together. We need to find a way to really battle this pandemic, which is at unprecedented, at global scales, unlike anything humanity has seen, at least in the last 100 years. And then the second rhetoric I'm saying is that we can get through this. Let's all work together and together we can get through it. But then the question is, when we get through it and we come out on the other side, what are we going to look like? If we're going to be doing the same old thing, same old mindset, and we get through the other side, how is that going to be any different? How is it going to be any different than how we got into this place to begin with? Where is the spiritual evolution? Where is the emotional evolution? So there's a lot of work to be done. I had a conversation with my cousin who is a pulmonologist. For those of you who are not familiar, it's a specialty in medicine where you're dealing with the lungs. And so this is the kind of specialists that are now at the very front of the front line. So when you, as you know, the COVID-19 ultimately attacks the lungs, and it inhabits in the lungs, and then it spreads in the lungs by using the other systems. And so he was telling me how the situation is so dire. So he graduated from New York, and his colleagues and all of them are seeing such 1,000 deaths a day approximately. And he says that entire wards, they had to clear out all other patients. All they have is COVID-19, COVID-19, COVID-19. And the triaging is a very, very tricky subject at this time. Who do they save? Who do they let go? And he says that he was saying this whole rhetoric that we're seeing, that young people are resilient, the immune system can get through this thing. No, he's saying that he's seeing on a daily basis people in their 30s, 40s dying. So let's not fool ourselves. Being wise, taking the precautions that we've been told to do, social isolation, physical distancing, but socially we want to keep ourselves fit through mechanisms such as this. So find ways to create community, but not to be in contact. He says that he was telling me, he says, listen, there's only one way this thing can spread, is when you're in contact with another human being. So it's very, very straightforward what you need to do, which is to keep yourself safe and distant from other people who they may or may not know that they're carrying. You may not know they're carrying. So that's the nature of this thing that we're dealing with right now. So as we get into the somatic exercise, I'm going to move myself a little back so you can see what I'm doing today. So today we're going to do some oblique stretches. So what I need you to do is to put your hands on the back of your head, and hopefully my camera is going to capture this. What I'm going to do is as I'm going to twist, I'm going to turn, and as you can see, I bring my knee. So my right elbow touches my left knee, come back up, and do the other way. Come back up, okay? So as I am bending forward, crunching forward, letting my elbow touch the knee, raising the knee off the chair or wherever you're seated, I exhale as I'm doing that. And as I come back up, I'm inhaling. So let's do 3 sets on both sides, okay? And one last time. Dropping into your heart space, using breath as a vector to take you in from the world outside into the world inside. You may leave your eyes open or closed, it doesn't matter. The idea is to turn your attention to the vast spaciousness within. It is said that the one who plants trees, knowing that he may never sit in their shade, has at least started to understand the meaning of life. As you're beginning to observe yourself and dropping into the silence of pure being, ask yourself this question: who am I? Ignoring any chatter on the surface of the mind, look deep within and notice what you see arising. You may notice two things. One is the self, not as an object, but as a being that exists. Simply existence, pure awareness. Nothing more. Notice how everyone and everything in your life comes and goes. But you always remain. Notice how anything that you place after the words such as I am a doctor, an American, bold, are not really who you are. They may describe where you are or what you do, but not who you are. And you may also notice the primary impulse that is natural to the being that you are is to create connection with others. It is to generate thoughts and actions with the purpose of connection. This is, of course, the primary impulse of love. And so you may notice that you exist to be what you are, which is a source of love. Now ask yourself this question: what is the meaning of my life? Does life need to have a meaning? You generate thoughts and actions for the purpose of connecting with others. In rekindling the flame of your own heart, the real meaning and significance of the principle of what you give is what you get comes to life. To give love is to free yourself from wanting love. You do get something back. There is a reward, but not from the other. It arrives as an inner reward called freedom from desire, neediness, and dependency. As a consequence, all your emotional addictions and anxieties start to disappear. The insecurity arising from the possibility of not getting others' approval, acceptance, or appreciation dissolves to be replaced by the ultimate security, which arises out of the realization that you are love. Then ask yourself this question: where do I have the opportunities to cultivate more of this feeling of meaning in my daily life? To act in alignment with what brings you meaning is to clean and heal yourself. Heal yourself from any old and often subtle cravings. And then whatever does come back from the other, be it acceptance or rejection, it is unable to inject you with the feelings of too high or too low about yourself. To fully understand the meaning of life, you first need to understand death. Death has to be one of the most important elements of life, for it is an event that puts the whole meaning of life into question. You may be occupied with purposeful activities, with getting tasks accomplished, work completed, and then comes along the phenomenon of death. Now, whether it's your final death or one of the many deaths through which you go day by day, and death confronts you with the fact that purpose is not enough. You live by meaning. When you come close to death and all purpose slips out of your hands, when you can no longer manipulate and control things to achieve specific goals, can your life still be meaningful? You tend to equate purpose with meaning. And when purpose is taken away, you stand there without meaning. So there is the challenge. How, when all purpose comes to an end, can there still be meaning? Now, this is not a practice of thinking about your last hour or of death as a physical phenomenon. It is seeing every moment of life against the horizon of death, and a challenge to incorporate that awareness of dying into every moment so as to become more and fully alive. Now, see your life as far ahead into the future as you possibly can, against the horizon of death. And ask yourself this question: what have you been lying to yourself that you know better but are scared to face the truth? What have you been lying to yourself that you know better but are scared to face the truth? gradually feeling into your heart space with the expanded awareness. Noticing the calmness that is set in your body and the much slower pace of thoughts in your mind. Let's come back into the circle. And when you're ready at your own pace, I'd like for you to answer this question that was posed. Or do you find yourself lying to yourself that you know better, but are scared to face the truth? So pose your responses in the chat window. And at the same time, I invite you to start formulating and typing your questions into the Q&A window. So they're two separate things. So please put the comments in the chat window. Daily introspection to have deep meaning and to be prepared to leave this human body. Yes, wonderful. Thank you. I'm scared to even say it, but the fact that my loved ones are not safe from this virus. That's true. Loved ones and myself, all of us. We all are vulnerable. Lisette says that there's a chance my ex and I will end up together again. Deep down, I know we're not compatible. Thank you for that vulnerability. Okay. Well, maybe this inquiry was a very important step in that journey then. And then I got another one, says that there is more time to figure all that out. That how everything is taken for granted and nothing lasts forever. Thank you, Archana. Very important. Yeah, one of the things that we have used and abused Mother Nature as if it was an incessant reservoir of resources that we can just take and use and throw, right? We talked about the other day this concept of the different forms of wealth and what the education system and the world, the corporate world has taught us about is only one, which is financial wealth. But that has come at the expense of all other wealth, our health, our emotional well-being, our family and relationships, ecology being a big one. Nobody measures all of that. It's just one thing, which is GDP. And we sacrifice so much. And we find ourselves like this, in these positions where we are shocked to wake up, no choice, but to realize that there's more to life than economic wealth. Very difficult to accept the bitter truth of nature, even though we know it's not real. Okay, and Teja says, at the moment of death, that you are alone during this lockdown time. Yes, Teja, and that's the whole point of all of this conversation, this community, is to make sure that we are giving our best. And when I said giving, remember I told you, it is thoughts, words, and actions. Sometimes it is a powerful wish that we put out through our mind without necessarily being there in person. It could be through our words of support, or it could be actual physical action that we can take if we are so in a position to do so and we are prepared to be able to protect ourselves and be able to do justice to this person who's in their last moment. So then it is also physical. But as we learn to lend this support through thoughts, words, and actions, we will also be beneficiaries, as we did in today's meditation, that it comes back to us, right? We feel the support of the global world family. Who am I? At the end, a spot may be found, but it is conditioned. Okay, at the end of a spot may be found, but it looks like it's conditioned. Yes, then, well, the inquiry is then to get behind that spot and see what is it that you truly are that is outside of conditioning, right? So one of the things we talked about here is holding something in awareness, right? Such that we realize and then we become it. Transformation, awareness, realization, transformation, or becoming. So yes, maybe we need to realize even that which we think that we are perceiving as being the self. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and see if you have any questions. Okay, so I have a question here. Many questions here. Thank you. You're already on the job here. Oftentimes I feel I'm way ahead of my time and peers in terms of thoughts. When I share my thoughts and ideas, hardly any are able to receive them the way they should. It's sort of unfortunate. You might have faced this situation many times, I believe. Should ignorance be the solution? No. Finding your peers is a solution. So I wrote an article about this. Actually, a friend of mine, I don't know if maybe she's listening to us today from San Diego. She once called me and she was going through a bitter divorce. And she was telling me that how she feels so out of place with her family, let alone her in-laws and the family that she's kind of married into, even with her childhood friends that she's with. And when she goes back to her family for Christmas, what have you, she feels that those gatherings are everybody and there should be her love and joy. But then she realizes that that's really not the case. She feels this deep down inside that this is not my community. And she says, I feel it's so weird, Jay. Why do I feel that way? So I decided to actually take that upon myself to share my feelings through an article. I wrote a blog post about it, where I talked about the hierarchy of needs. So just like Maslow set up this hierarchy of human needs, where he starts off at the very bottom, he says, food, water, shelter. These are the basic human needs, and human beings first strive, they do anything they possibly can to be able to get the basic needs. And then when you get the basic needs, the human being then evolves to the second step of the ladder, which is they want to secure. So we are one of those species that says, today we have food, we have shelter, we have this and that, clothing and so on our back and so on. But how do I know that I will have it tomorrow, 1 week from now? My next generation will be able to take care of themselves. So we learn to accumulate. Then comes the next step of the ladder, which is I've got the basics needs met. Now I need social recognition. So I go out to build community, like a family, friends, networks, and this and that. And then the fourth step is, okay, I've gone and created relationships. I've done all these things. Now I need recognition. So I need people to approve of what I'm saying and doing, acknowledging me. So I go and, become a politician or, do things that make me quote unquote famous, making a difference, so to speak. Then he says, Maslow was saying that then comes a fifth phase, which is after all of that has been said, I, me, myself. You think about the first four stages is really about I, me, myself. The fifth stage comes, which is transcendence. Transcendence means instead of the question of it being around me, the question pivots into we. How do we benefit? How do we rise? How can we all thrive as a human race? So you take that model, I applied that to spirituality, and I said, it's really the same thing. We all go through these journeys of having our needs met. But here's the interesting part. This is a journey that we're taking across the continuum of lifetime. What does that mean? We are having this conversation across lifetimes. That means if I have evolved myself in this particular lifetime to a rung in that ladder, which I just described, as I transition from this life, moving on, having shed this costume, I, the being, continues to exist. So where do I pick up? I pick up exactly where I left off in that last phase of the journey. So I put on a new costume and I start my evolutionary process from there. So then the question begs as to why do I feel? So this question is very valid. So then why do I feel so weird and awkward and out of place with the people that I'm born with, I went to school with, and I'm neighbors with, etc.? Is because, you see, physically you may have the same community, the same environment. Spiritually, you are at a different rung in the ladder. So one needs to find what that rung is for themselves and acknowledge that, recognize it, and say, this is a journey that I've come to. I'm at this point. I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to expect anybody else to change. Where is my inspiration? Where is my tribe that's going to take me to the next level? Okay, so therefore, we find ourselves, and when you look through the list of participants here, we'll have nothing in common. The religious background, the cultural upbringing, the nationality. But you see, here's an interesting thing that I noticed. Many of you have been responding to this already and saying, Jay, this is so magical. This is so marvelous. You speak the truth. It's not my magic. It is not my truth. It's not any miracle. It is our collective consciousness. So what I'm saying is something that is coming from the depth of my being, and my being is resonating with your being. So therefore, your being decides to come and choose to spend these last 12 days with me, and will probably continue to spend some more cycles of these hours with together. Why? Because when I say something, you resonate. That's why you recognize it. What does that mean? What does it mean to resonate and recognize? That means this and that have a truth. There is no really this and that. We're all the same, of the same fabric, but when there's a resonance, that means there's a recognition. So recognition is not really from what's coming from my mouth. It's coming from what's coming from your heart when something is striking that place within you. Do you understand? So it is very important to not forget that. See, there are moments like this. You see, many of you probably have never come into a gathering with the other people, me and all the 50 other, 70 other people, including the people listening on YouTube. But there's a resonance. There's a reason that we are coming back to this well, to this circle every day. Because we find that perhaps this is going to help us to get to that next level of our journey, not my neighbors, not my friends, not my family, not anybody else in my physical environment. So recognize that, and it'll be such a beautiful transition as you go through that, through the different levels. And so you keep moving forward. You don't stop. And not worry about, where somebody else is in the ladder. They're exactly where they need to be, and they need to go through their own evolutionary process. Well, that was a long answer, but a great question. So next question, what am I looking for is what I am looking with. Well, that's a great question and an observation. So that's, what are you looking with? The lens through which you're looking, so that you can find that which you're seeking, is a very integral part. Okay, so just to put it very simply, the lens that I call this is called soul consciousness. So the example that I take is that, the sun was always there. And imagine there's garbage sitting outside your house. The garbage has always been there. Sun comes up every day, comes and goes, nothing happens. But suddenly one day you introduce a magnifying glass. Okay, so all you do is you put the magnifying glass out into your environment, into your garden, and suddenly that same sun that always was beating down now goes through the lens of your magnifying glass, creates a certain concentration of the light, thereby igniting the garbage and burning it. So our old habits, hurts, personality traits, the stuff, the heaviness that we've been carrying has always been there. God has always been there, the divine being, call it whatever name you want. So what is the lens? What has changed now? What I'm seeking to do is through the lens of soul consciousness. That means ridding myself of my identity as me being a physical entity, which is nothing but a costume. This is my vehicle. This is not me. And now when I look and tune into the light of the divine, that light comes through me, penetrates me, and then burns that rubbish, that weight that I've been working all my life, maybe lifetimes, trying to get rid of. It's a beautiful inquiry. Thank you for that. So what am I looking with at what is it that I'm looking for? Great question. Next one, while approaching towards positivity, lots of negativity is around, not allowing to move towards positivity. How to overcome this? Very, very good question. The power of Sangha. You know, when Buddha was passing away, his disciples went to him and said, you know, so you have done such incredible work. You've awoken us, but now you're about to leave. His body was very frail. He was very sick. He was living in the cave, if you know the story. They asked him, so what is going to be the next, who's going to be the next Buddha? And his answer was, the Sangha is going to be the next Buddha. The community is what is going to carry us towards our self-realization. So there is a great power to the color of the company. In India, we call it Sangha ka rang. Sang means company, rang means color. So beautifully rhymes. So the color of the company that we keep. My grandmother used to always say, show me your friends, I will show you your character. What does that mean? We are an average of the company that we keep. Great. One more question, and then we're going to call it wraps. How to get rid of emotions like anger or wanting to be in control that you know you carry from your past experiences with someone? Well, the first thing is to realize, is to learn to observe when this emotions, and you gave a couple of examples, but there can be a whole lot of variety, a spectrum of emotions that can come up that basically sabotage your intelligence. What does emotion does? Emotion's role is to basically influence, to poison the mind, that the mind is not able to think rationally, not able to respond in a most coherent way, and we do things irrationally. That's why we call it carried away by the emotions, right? So the very first step is to recognize that emotion. That's why, so when I talked about the 3-step process, awareness, to become aware of it, then I look behind it and I realize what is the trigger that has caused this emotion to come up. And then I can transform. Okay. Fabulous. Thank you all for your lovely indulgence. Seeing some more questions here. I'm sorry, I want to respect your time. We call it 45 minutes. I want to keep it at that. So I'll see you. Save your questions for tomorrow. We'll come back. I'm sure we're going to be able to answer it. So copy and paste it before I close this meeting. So you can go ahead and put it on the top of this. So until I see you again, same time, same place tomorrow, be well. Thank you.